Most people love the feeling of setting goals. It gives them a little spark, a moment of clarity, maybe even a short burst of motivation. They say, I want to earn more money, or I want to lose weight, or I want to become more productive. Now that's a great start. Goals give us a sense of direction. They're like the compass that points us toward the destination. But here's the catch. Knowing where you want to go is not the same as knowing how to get there. The goal is only as good as the system behind it. Direction alone is not progress. You can stand on the road and point north all day, but until you start walking with a map, with a plan, with consistency, you won't get anywhere. That's the difference between dreamers and doers. The dreamer talks about where they want to go. The doer builds a system that takes them there step by step. Think of a farmer. His goal might be a good harvest, a field full of crops. But the harvest doesn't come because he writes that goal in a notebook. It comes because he builds a system. Till the soil, plant the seeds, water daily, protect from pests, stay consistent through every season. That's the system. And if he does that, he doesn't have to worry about the harvest. It will come. The same principle applies to any area of life. A writer who wants to publish a book can set that goal today, but it doesn't get written by dreaming. It gets written by showing up to write 500 words every day. That's the system. And if they stick to the system, the book takes care of itself. Or take an entrepreneur. Maybe she wants to build a 7-figure business. Big goal, but without a daily sales process, a client acquisition system, a schedule to sharpen her skills, it remains a fantasy. The problem with goals is that they are future-focused, and that's not where results are created. Results are created in the present by what you do today, tomorrow, and the next day. And if you're always thinking about where you want to be without focusing on what you need to do daily, you're stuck in a gap between desire and execution. That's where most people live, stuck between wanting something and not having a system to get it. Now, goals are not the enemy, but they're incomplete without structure. Think of them like a destination on a map. You need to know where you're going. But the system is the vehicle. It's what moves you forward day after day. And if you take care of the system, if you build something sustainable, something simple and repeatable, you'll find yourself reaching those goals almost as a byproduct. Most people fail not because their goals are too big, but because their systems are too weak, or worse, non-existent. They aim high but don't build the support structure to carry the weight of their ambition. That's like building a skyscraper on a sand foundation. So the wiser move is to shift focus. Let the goal set the target, but let the system do the lifting. And here's the beauty. Systems don't rely on motivation. They rely on rhythm. They turn discipline into automation. When you show up every day and follow the process, you don't need to feel inspired. You just follow the pattern you've already designed. And over time, this quiet, daily process becomes your path to the big goal you once only dreamed about. That's when progress becomes predictable. That's when direction turns into destination. The biggest challenge with goals is that they often live in a notebook or on a vision board, but never make it into the calendar. People write goals down, feel excited for a moment, and then go right back to their regular routine, the same routine that gave them the results they want to change. Without a structure in place, goals quickly fade. What looked like motivation on day 1 turns into frustration by week 2. That's not because the goal was wrong, it's because there was no daily structure to bring it to life. When you wake up in the morning without a system, you're relying on willpower. And willpower is like a battery. It drains quickly. Most people run out of it by 10 a.m. That's why you see people start with good intentions but finish with excuses. I was too busy today. I'll start again Monday. It's the same pattern. A goal that's not built into your day becomes optional, and optional things rarely get done. But when you have a system, a repeatable, non-negotiable process, there's no decision to make. It's already been made. You've already scheduled your focus time. You've already planned your workout. You've already blocked out time for reading, writing, or follow-ups. It's not based on how you feel. It's based on what you've committed to. Systems take the guesswork out of execution. They remove the friction, and that's why they work when goals alone don't. You can't build a strong body by going to the gym once a week when you feel motivated. You build a strong body by having a system. Maybe it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday workout routine, same time, same process week after week. That's structure. And that structure over time produces results that no amount of short-term excitement can match. The same applies to your finances. You don't build wealth just by wanting more money. You build it by setting up an automatic saving and investing system. You create a process that happens regardless of emotion. What systems do is create momentum. And momentum is powerful because it takes less energy to keep something going than it does to start it over and over again. Every time you fall off track and try to restart from zero, you waste time, energy, and confidence. A system helps you stay in motion. It keeps the wheels turning even when life gets chaotic. Another reason people struggle is they try to do too much at once. They set massive goals, but never create a system to support small wins. A good system focuses on consistency over intensity. It's better to read 10 pages a day than try to read a whole book in one weekend. It's better to make 5 sales calls a day than to burn out trying to make 50 once a month. Systems work because they're manageable, they're sustainable. They build discipline quietly, day by day. Systems also bring clarity. When your actions are built into your routine, you don't have to waste mental energy deciding what to do next. You don't start each day wondering how to make progress. You follow the plan. That mental freedom is a huge advantage. It frees you up to think strategically rather than react emotionally. And that's the space where real growth happens. People don't fail for lack of desire. They fail for lack of structure. They start with energy but without architecture. The goal might be clear, but the road is undefined. And in the absence of a clear system, even the best goals fall apart under the weight of everyday life. So the key is to stop leaving your goals up to chance. Build them into your routine, make them automatic, and let structure, not motivation, carry you forward. One of the greatest mistakes people make when chasing success is they fixate so much on the end goal that they become paralyzed by the size of it. You've probably heard someone say, "It's just too overwhelming. I don't know where to start." That's a symptom of goal obsession without system thinking. But systems are the antidote, because systems break big things down into small, doable, repeatable actions. They shrink the mountain into a path. And when you focus on just the next step instead of the entire journey, you eliminate overwhelm and create momentum. Let's say someone sets a goal to run a marathon. If they wake up each morning thinking about the 26.2 miles, they might never lace up their shoes. It's too much to think about. But if they say, "Today I'm just running 1 mile," they can manage that. And tomorrow maybe it's 1.5 miles. That's a system. The goal is far off, but the system makes it approachable. That's the power of focusing on the process rather than the destination. When you implement a system, you stop relying on bursts of energy and instead build a rhythm. And rhythm is easier to maintain than motivation. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. But a rhythm, a routine, a repeatable behavior, that's what builds consistency. And consistency is the secret sauce in any long-term result. It's not what you do once in a while that changes your life. It's what you do every day. Imagine someone wants to grow a business. If all they do is think about reaching $1 million in revenue, that can feel impossible. But if they build a daily system, make 5 prospecting calls, send 3 follow-up emails, work on their product for 60 minutes a day, suddenly they're not chasing $1 million, they're executing a process, and if the process is right and consistent, the result follows naturally. The great thing about systems is that they allow you to win daily. You're not waiting 6 months or a year to feel successful. You get a win today just by sticking to the plan. That creates a sense of progress, and progress is one of the best fuels for confidence and persistence. Every time you check off that habit, every time you complete that task, you reinforce your identity and keep your momentum going. Here's what else systems do. They build your mental strength. When you show up and do the work, regardless of how you feel, you start to trust yourself. You stop being at the mercy of your emotions and start becoming driven by principle. You become the kind of person who acts on discipline, not mood. That's a powerful shift, because once you become that person, you're dangerous in a good way. You can take on anything, not because the task got easier, but because you got stronger. And you know what else happens? You start seeing compound growth. That's the magic of systems. When you do small things consistently over time, they start to multiply. The results you get in month 6 are far greater than what you got in week 1, not because the actions changed, but because you stacked them. That's how someone goes from average to exceptional, not overnight, not in a flash of inspiration, but in the quiet compounding of consistent action. That's why when people say, I feel overwhelmed, what they really need is a system, a simple, repeatable path that focuses on today, not tomorrow. A system that doesn't ask for heroics, just discipline. Because when you eliminate the overwhelm and focus on the next right step, you start making progress without even realizing it. And over time, that's what leads to everything you thought was out of reach. Success, when you strip it down, is rarely about one-time actions. It's not the result of some big dramatic event. It's not the product of sudden bursts of genius or effort. It's the result of small, disciplined actions repeated over time. The truth is, the extraordinary is built on the back of the ordinary. The winners in life aren't always the smartest or most talented. They're the ones who develop the discipline to do the basics day in and day out, even when no one's watching. Anytime, discipline is like a muscle. It grows when it's used. And when you combine discipline with repetition, you get consistency. And consistency over time is what creates the compounding effect. Most people underestimate the power of doing one small thing every day. They look for something big to make a difference. But life doesn't usually reward intensity. It rewards consistency. You don't get fit by working out for 5 hours once. You get fit by showing up for 30 minutes a day over 100 days. That's the game. And this is where systems shine. Because systems help turn discipline into habit. They make the repetition automatic. When you build a system, whether it's for your health, your business, your mindset, or your relationships, you create a space where discipline gets reinforced every single day. It stops being a decision and starts being a way of life. You don't have to think about whether or not to act. You just follow the system. That removes resistance. And when resistance goes down, action goes up. Now here's something important. Discipline doesn't mean perfection. It means showing up, even if you don't feel like it, even if you're tired, even if the results haven't shown up yet. That's the kind of discipline that builds character. And character is what keeps you in the game long enough to win. Everyone can get excited for a few days. Everyone can hustle for a weekend. But the ones who build lasting success are the ones who find a system that keeps them in motion through the ups and downs. Repetition may not be exciting, but it is effective. It's in the repetition that skills sharpen. It's in the repetition that confidence grows. It's in the repetition that belief becomes behavior. You start by acting with discipline, and eventually that action becomes your identity. That's the shift. You stop saying, I'm trying to become disciplined, and you start saying, I am a disciplined person. And that internal shift changes everything about how you operate. Another key point is that repetition creates mastery. You don't need 1,000 different strategies. You need one strategy practiced 1,000 times. That's how you become world class. In sports, in sales, in public speaking, in investing, it's the repetition of core fundamentals that separates the good from the great. And you can't reach that level if you're constantly switching direction. Systems give you the foundation to stay the course long enough for mastery to develop. There's also a compounding benefit to discipline and repetition: momentum. Once you start seeing small results, those results feed your motivation. They push you to keep going, and the further you go, the easier it becomes to stay consistent. That's the momentum loop. And systems are what keep you inside that loop. it becomes harder to quit than to keep going. And when you hit that stage, you've built something powerful, something that can carry you through challenges and accelerate your growth. So while the world chases hacks and shortcuts, you build systems. You rely on discipline, not emotion. You repeat the process, not just when you feel like it, but especially when you don't. Because those small daily disciplines, stacked one on top of the other, are what build a life that looks effortless from the outside, but was built by design from the inside. Most people are obsessed with outcomes. They want the trophy, the money, the recognition. And while there's nothing wrong with wanting those things, they can become a distraction if you're not careful. The danger is getting so focused on the finish line that you forget to run the race. That's what happens when you live in a goal-based mindset. You're always looking ahead, measuring how far you still have to go. But when you shift your focus from outcome to process, from goals to systems, you bring your attention to what you can control right now. And that's where the real power is. When your mind is fixated on the outcome, your emotions go up and down like a roller coaster. If things are moving quickly, you feel great. If progress slows, you feel discouraged. But when you commit to the process, you build a more stable kind of motivation. Because it's not about how far you still have to go, it's about whether you did the work today. That's the system mindset. Did you show up? Did you do what you said you would? If the answer is yes, then you're winning regardless of how close the goal feels. Focusing on process also keeps you honest. Goals can be vague. I want to get in shape. I want to make more money. But systems demand clarity. A system asks, what does that look like on a Tuesday morning? That kind of thinking brings you back to earth. It turns your vision into behavior. And behavior is where change really happens. The process gives structure to your ambition. It makes your future tangible by anchoring it in the present. There's also a mental freedom that comes from focusing on the system instead of the result. You remove the pressure to succeed immediately. You stop treating every day like a test. And when the pressure's off, you perform better. Athletes call it playing loose. It's the freedom to be fully present because you trust the work. When your attention is on doing the right thing consistently, you don't need to constantly check the scoreboard. You just play the game the right way, over and over. And something else happens when you fall in love with the process. You become more resilient. See, people who only chase results often give up when things don't go their way. But people who are committed to the system keep showing up even when it's hard because they're not just chasing a win, they're becoming someone new. And when growth becomes the goal, it's much harder to stop. That kind of mindset isn't shaken by a bad day, a slow week, or a failed attempt, because you've already made peace with the fact that the process is the reward. Shifting your focus also builds better habits. When you're locked in on the system, you develop routines that support your success, not just chase it. You start to act like the kind of person who already has the results. And when you act that way long enough, the results show up. It's not magic, it's alignment. Your actions and your outcomes begin to match. But it starts by focusing on the action, not the outcome. That's how you make success sustainable. Because if you only feel successful when you reach the goal, you're always living in a gap. You're always feeling behind. But if you find success in doing the work, in staying consistent, in building a system, you win every day. You stop waiting for a finish line to feel fulfilled. You start building a life that rewards you along the way. That's not just more effective, it's more enjoyable. And that's what keeps you going long enough to actually get what you want. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. The problem isn't ambition, it's the lack of patience. They want things fast, they want progress today. And when they don't see results quickly, they get discouraged and quit. But the truth is, anything worth building takes time. Wealth, health, skills, relationships, none of them appear overnight. They grow, and they grow through systems, not through sudden breakthroughs. A good system doesn't promise instant success, it promises eventual success. And that's a much better promise. When you commit to a system, you're playing the long game. You stop looking for immediate feedback and start trusting the process. Think of a farmer. He plants the seed, he waters it, he nurtures it. He doesn't dig it up every day to see if it's growing. He knows the result comes later. Your goals are the harvest. But your daily habits, the system, that's the planting, watering, and nurturing. You can't cheat that timeline. All you can do is stay faithful to the process. The beautiful thing about systems is that they remove the emotional highs and lows. When you only focus on results, your mood is tied to the scoreboard. But when you build and follow a system, your success becomes inevitable. It's just a matter of time. You may not know the exact day it'll show up, but you know that every action you take is a deposit in the right direction. It's no longer about hope, it's about math. Consistent action over time equals progress. Now here's where most people go wrong. They break the chain. They start strong, then miss a day, then two, then they lose momentum and they start over again. The key is not intensity, it's continuity. Systems thrive on rhythm. They're built for longevity, not sprints. That means you have to protect your system like it's sacred, because it is. Once your system is broken, it takes more energy to restart than it did to continue. That's why the people who succeed are the ones who build small, sustainable habits and refuse to miss twice. Another benefit of long-term systems thinking is that it allows you to course correct. When you're not rushing toward a goal, you give yourself the space to improve the process. You can learn from your actions, adjust the system, and keep moving forward. It's not about getting everything right on day one. It's about staying in the game long enough to get better. Perfection isn't the goal. Persistence is. This way of thinking also makes you more adaptable. If life changes, you can adjust your system. If a strategy stops working, you can refine it without losing momentum. Goals are rigid, but systems are flexible. And flexibility is key to staying consistent over time. It keeps you from being derailed by setbacks. You don't abandon the mission, you just tweak the method. And that kind of resilience is a competitive advantage most people don't have. The real payoff of a long-term system isn't just the result, it's who you become in the process. Systems shape your habits, and habits shape your identity. Eventually, you stop having to think about success because it becomes who you are. You're not chasing discipline, you're living it. You're not trying to build confidence, you're proving it to yourself every day through consistent action. That's why short-term thinking is so dangerous. It seduces you with speed but robs you of depth. It promises a shortcut but usually ends up being the long way around. But a system, a good system, it compounds. It gets stronger over time, and it gives you the best chance at building something that lasts. Because in the end, the people who win aren't the ones who sprint. They're the ones who never stop walking. What makes the difference in life isn't just setting goals, it's building systems that carry you through the days when motivation runs low and distractions run high. The key to real progress is not found in intensity, but in consistency. Not in wishing, but in working. Systems give structure to your ambition, rhythm to your discipline, and traction to your dreams. When you focus on what you can do daily and build that into a repeatable process, success moves from being a distant hope to a predictable outcome. That's how you win, not just once, but over and over again.